Hi, Miguel here, back with another revisit to Pokémon Adventures. Sorry about not being able to upload for a really long time. I got really busy and I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with this channel, the direction that I wanted to take it. By the way, if you haven't yet checked out that video, it's in the it was uploaded yesterday, so definitely check it out and figure out basically what I want to do with this channel. But anyway, today we're doing Volume 4, and this is the beginning of the yellow arc of Pokemon Adventures, which, again, I did read as a kid, so, but I actually haven't reread it as much as I've reread the red, blue, and green chapter. For those of you who aren't very familiar with Pokemon's history, after the original Pokemon games Red, Blue, and, the Japanese-only Green came out, the anime came out and was, like, very, very popular. So, Pokemon released a yellow version of the original Red and Blue games, which is, sort of based on the anime. It has a lot of changes in it that are, that are inspired by the changes made in the anime, such as your starter Pokemon is Pikachu. It doesn't go in the ball. It follows you around on foot. And you have Jesse, James, and Meowth following you everywhere. Some of the gym leaders and the wild Pokemon are updated to more resemble how the anime presented them. So while the yellow chapter is definitely not based on the anime, it takes some inspiration from it. It's still a very, very interesting chapter, and it has interesting characters, a very interesting new character who is actually a fan favorite. I wouldn't say, like, it's my absolute favorite of the Pokemon Adventures characters. I still like Red and Blue a little bit more, but I will admit that Yellow is a fantastic character. But yeah, the Yellow chapter takes a lot of inspiration from the Yellow version of the game, not so much the anime. So yeah, that's a little bit of context for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. So the first thing that I noticed going back to this volume as an adult is actually the pacing is a lot better just in this first volume. I mentioned that the pacing is better in volume 3 of the Red, Green, and Blue chapter, but this one, like, really takes the cake for how well it figures out that we have to stretch these adventures, these separate circumstances, that Yellow encounters into across the rounds, across the chapters, basically. So it gets a lot better because we spend more time in one situation. We spend more time seeing how Yellow thinks through a situation, and fights her own battles. By the way, I say her, that's a bit of a spoiler. It's not in this volume, but I do already know that Yellow is a girl. And honestly, anyone who read the Red, Green, and Blue chapter thoroughly would remember who Yellow is, would figure out who she is, and know that, yeah, she's a girl. She's not a guy. She is in disguise as a guy, but she is actually a girl. So anyway, the pacing is fantastic. The battles span multiple chapters, which allow it allows more time to look at the battle, to figure out the how things go, and really relate to the characters and the Pokemon a lot more. So let's talk really quickly about Yellow. Like I said, she's a fan favorite. She's a girl. And I do really, really, really love Yellow. She brings an interesting perspective to the Pokemon world in that she's a Pokemon trainer who has to fight to save the world, but she does not enjoy fighting. She does not enjoy harming Pokemon, and she has this interesting power, first of all, to read Pokemon's thoughts and feel their emotions, and also to heal Pokemon, which is something that I don't think we see very often in any Pokemon media. A trainer who can whose power is to empathize with Pokemon and also to heal them. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing that Yellow has going on there. And it's made even more interesting in her dynamic with the other trainers who don't have any qualms about hurting their opponent's Pokemon, and also, of course, they don't have that power to heal, but, like, when she interacts with those trainers, they automatically take her unwillingness to harm other Pokemon as weakness. This is especially evident when we meet Blue at the end of the at the end of the volume. And we know that Blue has, is very much about training Pokemon, is very much about becoming stronger at the end of the day. So when he encounters Yellow, he takes Yellow's, unwillingness to harm Pokemon as weakness, and he says, like, it's okay to be it's okay to not want any Pokemon to get hurt, but you have to remember that, at the end of the day, this is war. We're fighting a group of people who don't care that you don't want to hurt Pokemon. At the end of the day, you have to, you have to make compromises. And of course that conflicts with Yellow's morals and how she wants to approach Pokemon. It's actually very evident in the Pokemon that she chooses throughout the volume. She has a Rattata, a Doduo, and Red's Pikachu, and we're gonna get to Red and his Pikachu in a little bit. But you'll notice, especially if you've played the games, that Rattata and Doduo are not the strongest Pokemon at all. But it makes sense because Yellow, she wants to keep her Pokemon at a low level so that she doesn't have to severely hurt her opponents. And she has this very unique battle style in which she doesn't want to hurt the opponent's Pokemon, so she instead finds a way to finish battles without harming them. So it's a very interesting thing that she has going on. I really, really, really like Yellow, especially in comparison to the other trainers that we've seen previously. So what's the plot? Red got a challenge from Bruno. This is 2 years, by the way, after Red beat Blue in the Triennial Pokemon League tournament. And he gets a challenge from Bruno of the Elite Four, who, fans of the games and of the anime, I think, will remember the Elite Four as being powerful trainers who are, even stronger than the gym leaders. In the games, you have to fight them one after another before you finally face the champion. So Red gets an invitation from Bruno of the Elite Four to battle, and then he doesn't come back. The only Pokemon who comes back is Pikachu, severely wounded. So Yellow has to go find Red, teaming up with Pikachu, and bring him back, make sure he's safe. And in the process, she clashes with the Elite Four. One thing that I really, really love is that the manga continues to showcase Pika's personality. Pika being Red's Pikachu, of course. Pika is very hesitant to train with Yellow because, first of all, Pika's Red's Pokemon, and Pika was very hesitant to be with Red as well, We remember how Red first met Pika, how Pika was very stubborn, but eventually, gradually warmed up to Red. And this is the same thing with Yellow. Pika is not Yellow's Pokemon, so Pika is very hesitant to do anything with Yellow, despite knowing Yellow personally. Despite knowing that Yellow is Pika's only hope at, finding Red. And it remains very, very worried about Red. It's very, it tears you apart inside to, see Pika, lash out at Yellow. You don't understand how I'm feeling. My trainer is missing. We have to go rescue him. We don't have time to, laze about. It's very heartbreaking seeing Pika interact with Yellow in such a manner because the way the volume is going, we want Pika and Yellow to get along, to, work together so that we can finally find Red. Pika is a great Pokemon in this volume. So the Elite Four, we do get to see a little bit of the Elite Four. We see Bruno, we see Agatha, we see Lorelei. We haven't seen Lance yet, but Lorelei is very much about wrapping up the loose ends, and, Agatha comes across Blue. We get an interesting flashback to before the Pokemon League tournament, in which Blue is actually confronted by Agatha, and he nearly dies. Interestingly enough, Agatha has a grudge against Professor Oak, and, Blue being Professor Oak's grandson, she is very, very eager to, destroy Blue and get back at Professor Oak. So Blue, we do see a little bit of Blue's backstory, how he started training under a mysterious mentor figure. I know who the mentor figure is. Again, I've read all of these manga before, but I'm just revisiting them as an adult. But it's very interesting seeing how Blue developed the mentality that he has now, how he developed that mentality to get stronger. You know, the way that he trains with his Pokemon, coming from that mentor figure, and how he actually passes that information down to his own, like, sort of pupil person. Another thing that I really like about this, like, Pokemon Adventures continually finds very creative ways for Pokemon to battle. At one point, Blue is incapacitated. He is hypnotized by a Gengar. His dream is being eaten, but the only way he has to communicate with his pupil, or the trainer that came to accompany him, is to use Golduck to read his mind and transmit it to the Pokedex. And it's very creative how that happens. Very, very well done. The gym leaders come back. Brock, Misty, Erica. They're all worried about Red. They all wanna find Red. It's great to see them working together again. And you know, Erica again has this very close bond with the people of Celadon City, which allows her to, to really have a strong force to help find Red and fend off the forces of the Elite Four. So a lot going on in this volume. I can't really talk about everything. There's a super nerd who it's an interesting fake out, because we do see, like, Pika for a moment, like, we think he's reuniting with Red, but it turns out it's not Red. It's this super nerd who has Red's clothing, who found a scrap of Red's clothing and used it to duplicate the scent and create a disguise as Red to capture Pika and bring it to the Elite Four. So that's clever, and I like the way that they gradually reveal a little more about Red's whereabouts. So Red, first we know that Red is defeated by Bruno. We learn a little more, like, the super nerd had a scrap of Red's clothing, so the super nerd at some point came into contact with Red. So a lot of these, like, really creative setups, really interesting ways of revealing what happened to Red and how they're going to find them. Of course, the Elite Four is interesting. Bruno seems very much about the, about training to become better, very much like Red and Blue. And Lorelei interested in wrapping up loose ends, Agatha interested in, getting back at Professor Oak. All of these members of Elite Four have their own agenda, despite, being in the same group and having ultimately the same goal. They have different reasons for achieving that goal. So it's great. It's interesting. This actually is, coming back to it, I think this actually is my favorite volume so far. Like, I loved Volume 3 of the Red, Green, and Blue arc, but the Yellow arc, like, already, like, it gets things going. It, like, really, sets the story in motion immediately. It introduces an interesting character who is interesting on her own, by the way, which is, something that Red kind of lacked. Red, ultimately, I think what made me really like Red going into the Red, Green, and Blue chapter was his rivalry with Blue and the way that he interacted with Blue. So Yellow being interesting on her own is, like, it's already a big step up from the previous chapter, and the way that it makes it a lot more interesting when she does interact with the other trainers. So yeah, I'm really excited to continue with this chapter. I really love Pokemon Adventures, and yeah, that said, thanks for watching. By the way, I'll be upgrading Pokemon Adventures to, like, a more of a regular schedule. I used to have Pokemon Adventures, and this is still going up on Saturday. Pokemon Adventures for me was going up on every Saturday of the week, but I've decided, because there's a lot to get through with regards to Pokemon Adventures, I've decided I'm just going to make it my second series alongside Naruto, which I'm still working on. So from this point forward, after this video anyway, the Pokemon Adventures manga and my reactions and reviews to it will be going up, like, alternating days on weekdays alongside Naruto. So definitely keep an eye out for my Naruto vlogs. If you haven't seen them, check them out. And again, if you haven't seen the rest of the Pokemon Adventures Revisited series, why are you here? But like, I appreciate you being here, but like, watch the rest of them. Definitely do that. I also recently did a full reaction to Orange, which is another manga about, you know, regrets and trying to go back to fix those regrets. Trying to live a life without regrets. Definitely check that one out if you haven't already. It's a very, very beautiful manga. So yeah, that being said, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.